有人打开了连接异世界的通道。
我一定会将那个幻魔的天魔界小子碎尸万段。
Tianbo was no stranger to the Heavenly Devil Horde. He had traveled through great ruins with Village Chief at night and met the Heavenly Devil Horde when he was searching for Carefree Village, and he had also killed quite a number of them. The body of these Heavenly Devil Horde was strong and grew in all shapes and sizes, which was different from humans. Furthermore, they cultivate devil chi and was proficient in close combat and spells. Their divine arts are queer but not as intricate as humans. When these heavenly devils just landed, Tianbo flashed to the side of a heavenly devil and raised his knife and beheaded this heavenly devil. He then dodged the scorpion tail of another heavenly devil, the jet black tail nearly hooking onto his neck. Tianbo stabbed his fingers forward and Junior Protector sword pierced through the scorpion tail which the heavenly devil had yet retracted. With his other hand executing heavenly devil Freedom Mudra, he pulled the soul of a heavenly devil which was closing in on him out of his body, shattering the soul into pieces. Una la. A cow-head heavenly devil pointed at him and shouted, Una la, Maya Bulu Gnao Didi Nuo Jiohong warrior, I want to challenge you. Come, bring it on. Tianbo shouted and his vital chi burst forth as he executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. That cow-head heavenly devil bellowed and rushed over with quick steps while dragging a huge and long knife that was 10 yards long. The blade of the knife was in contact with the ground, thus sparks flew as he dragged it over and slashed it down at Tianbo with a sudden shout. Right at this moment, a huge snake crashed down from the sky and crushed the cow-head heavenly devil into broken pieces. Long Jianan controlled the huge snake to land on the ground, and with the snake's tail sweeping horizontally like a huge iron pillar, she managed to overwhelm and crush dozens of heavenly devils that came for her. Tianbo instantly fleeted away, and as Long Jianan was about slaughter towards him, countless heavenly devils descended from the sky. Even though her cultivation had surpassed Tianbo by 2 to 3 realms, she was still caught up in a bitter struggle. Tianbo was also caught in an ambush. Hu Linga immediately summoned a tornado that revolved around them, but there were still heavenly devils who could rush into the tornado and pounced at them. More and more heavenly devils poured in from another world, and looking from afar, they were like countless flies flying down from the sky, hiding the sky and covering the earth. Patriarch said, I must be able to settle disaster created by myself. It seems that I can't settle it this time. Cold sweats broke out on Tianbo's forehead. Suddenly, bright light suddenly came from the south, and the lights were moving in the sky, lighting up the entire land. The lights grew brighter and brighter as they moved from the south. Wherever the light passed by, countless of heavenly devils would fall from the sky without their heads. Tianbo raised his head to take a look and was shook. Those lights were sword groups. Sword groups formed by countless swords. It was impossible to count exactly how many swords there were. Meanwhile, in the middle of the sword groups, there were thousands of sword pellets that were still whirling continuously. The sword pellets were like moons, and as they spun, flying swords flew out continuously and killed all the heavenly devils in the sky with all kinds of sword forms. The sword groups were simply too vast. The light given off by each sword was all very dazzling, and there was probably a few million swords here. With all the light gathered together, it was truly a magnificent sight. Even though the heavenly devils from Duqian hid the sky and covered the earth in a piece of black, the sky soon cleared up once again after the dazzling sword groups swept them, leaving just countless corpses falling from the sky. In Heaven Wave City, Duqian Devil King's expression changed hugely and gave a bellow. He sped up the process to summon his true body over, and the 100 of heavenly devils' voices around the altar became incomparably loud and clear, using the devil language and countless corpses to summon the true body of Duqian Devil King. The air trembled violently as a huge foot stretched out from another world. There were devil flames burning around this feet which burned the sky scarlet red. The sword groups in the sky suddenly changed their directions and whistled towards Heaven Wave City. The scale of the sword groups was almost as huge as Heaven Wave City. In the city, Duqian Devil King roared in anger as he raised his 8 arms. With a hum, a huge black barrier appeared in the sky above Heaven Wave City, covering the entire sky. In an instant, countless ear-piercing noises sounded out, causing countless people to bleed from their ears. That was the sound when the flying swords collided with the black barrier of Duqian Devil King. The clanging noises practically burst forth all at the same time, therefore no one's ears could withstand the sound. Tianbo was also deafened and couldn't hear any sounds. Countless heavenly devils around him were also covering their ears and squatting on the floor in an unbearable pain. In Martial Order County on the opposite shore, countless Eternal Peace's soldiers were guarding against the invasion of the Heavenly Devil Horde, and everything was in complete confusion. The noises given off from the collision between the sword lights and the dark barrier had also caused an extreme pain to the countless soldiers here. However, since the distance was much further, it was still bearable for them. Plopping sounds came from the river surface. It was from those heavenly devils flying to the opposite shore who were getting blown out from the sky, falling into the river. In the city tower of Martial Order County, a white-haired old general gave off an expression of astonishment. Imperial preceptor, a great expert, has gone to the opposite shore. Duke Wei, this man is not only a great expert. Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor stood in the front and gazed at the situation across the river. His ability is not far from mine. He's even stronger than the 3 old monsters that ambushed me back then. Duke Wei gave off a puzzled expression. He sized up the sword groups that were contending against Duqian Devil King and looked at the true body of Duqian Devil King in the sky, which already had half of his leg in this world, while asking puzzledly, who had summoned this Devil King? Isn't this a little too much? Have these fellows of the southern borders really stooped so low just to obtain victory? Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor shook his head. With me around, Duqian Devil King will not be able to descend into this world. On the contrary, the one who summoned this devil god had done a great merit for our eternal peace. Isn't Heavenwave City just destroyed like that? Our soldiers will not have to bleed. If it was me, I will also choose to do this for the lives of our soldiers. Duke Wei sighed. Imperial preceptor, this is why they don't understand you and said you're following the devil path. Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor walked out of the city tower and headed towards Heavenwave City on the opposite shore with a smile. The reason they said that was because I had affected their interests. My merits and demerits are not what the current people can evaluate. Only the people of hundreds and thousands of years later can judge my merits and demerits. Furthermore, in my eyes, they're already dead. In Heavenwave City, Duqian Devil King gave a dull grunt. The flesh on his 8 palms became messed up. The attack of the countless swords was simply terrifying. He was unable to endure the strength coming from them. If his true body came forward, he could naturally endure it, but this body was merely transformed from wood. Qin Mu had summoned him with his devil voice, but Qin Mu's strength was too weak. The energy he could transfer over through Qin Mu was too little and wasn't enough to contend with this strong practitioner that was controlling countless of flying swords. At this moment, he saw a middle-aged man walking over from the other side of the river. Duqian Devil King felt a fear in his heart and was about to exert out a little strength when he suddenly saw a sword light flying straight to his face. How breathtaking was this sword attack! This sword attack contained an extremely profound principle in the sword path, unleashing the murderous desire of the transforming sword path to its fullest extent. It was like revealing an extremely fine painting in front of his eyes. To be able to see this painting, he could die without regrets. So he died. His head was severed by this sword light, and the head that grew 4 faces and 12 eyes rolled from his neck. Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor retracted his sword and walked up to Heavenwave City. The heavenly devil horde in the city was still taking charge of the sacrificial altar. When they saw this middle-aged man, God knows how many heavenly devils immediately swarmed forward, pouncing at Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor. What followed next was the collapse of Duqian Devil King's huge corpse. That black barrier also shattered and disintegrated in the air. The countless flying swords attacking the black barrier suddenly moved back and returned into the sword pellets. In the sky floated thousands of sword pellets, each of which was the size of a thumb, rotating around and around. At this moment, a chest flew over from far away and the lid of the wooden chest opened up. The countless sword pellets flew back into the wooden chest with tinkling and thumping sounds. Eternal Peace Imperial preceptor looked at that wooden chest and seemed to be deep in his thoughts as he stood there motionlessly. Without anyone to take care of the sacrificial altar, that hair-raising summoning came to a stop, and the growing vortex in the sky immediately stopped growing before gradually shrinking. The true body of Duqian Devil King already had a leg in and was forced to pull back his leg. An extremely unwilling and angry roar faintly came from the depths of the sky. Outside Heavenwave City, Qin Mu was also raising his head to look at the wooden chest in mid-air and revealed a suspicious look. This chest looks very familiar. It seems to be the one in the smithy in the village. That wooden chest was also filled with silver-colored pellets. Granny Sai even told me those weren't sword pellets and were ordinary silver pellets. She even said Grandpa Mute wouldn't be so rich. He saw every single one of the sword pellets enter the wooden chest. The wooden chest gradually fell down and he immediately sprinted to the place where the wooden chest was landing at. That wooden chest descended down and vanished in a piece of forest. Qin Mu rushed over and saw an elder in cotton clothing who was carrying a furnace for forging on his back. On his hand was a wooden chest and hardships could be seen all across his face. Those were the wrinkles left behind by time. When the elder in cotton clothing saw him run over, he gave a wide grin and there was no tongue in his mouth. "Grandpa Mute!" Tianbo immediately hurried over and opened his arms to hug that elder in cotton clothing. He wanted to hug him up, but this elder was like the heaviest mountain in the world and he was unable to lift him up at all. Tianbo laughed in excitement and exerted all his strength, but he was still unable to hug him up. Mute gave 2 Rs and placed the chest down. Tianbo was finally able to hug him up and spun 2 rounds before throwing this elder to the ground. Mute landed on his butt and stood up to pat the dust off his butt. He gave 2 signals which meant you were too naughty. "Grandpa Mute, why have you left the village as well? How come you're here?" Tianbo was surprised and delighted as he asked rapidly, "You were so powerful just now. Are the sword pellets in the chest forged by you? Who else has come with you?" As Mute made noises, he did hand signs as well. His eyebrows formed a board shape and put his palms together beside his face to act like he was sleeping before suddenly stretching 2 fingers out to make a walking shape. His hand signed rapidly and his expression also changed a few thousand times in a breath's time, dazzling Tianbo's eyes. "Grandpa Mute, slow down, I can't follow you. Where's Grandpa Deaf? Why didn't he follow you?" Mute revealed a pleased expression and signed for a while. He meant he had sneaked out of the village secretly and didn't tell anyone. Tianbo blinked his eyes and smiled. "You don't know, I met Grandpa Butcher and Grandpa Blind, and also Granny Sai. They had already left the village." Mute was astonished and gave 2 chuckles. He raised his wooden chest towards Tianbo, signaling for him to help carry the chest. Tianbo sneered and didn't stretch his hand out. "Grandpa Mute, don't try to fool me. This chest is very heavy. There are a few thousand sword pellets inside, right? Your sword pellet is very heavy and your chest is even heavier. If I help you carry it, I will definitely dislocate my shoulders and fall to the ground. I was tricked the previous time and I won't be tricked again." Mute grinned mischievously and gave Tianbo a thumbs up. In disabled elderly village, other than Cripple who would tease Tianbo the most, Mute was next. Suddenly, Mute raised his eyebrows and looked behind Tianbo. Tianbo also hurriedly looked back and saw a middle-aged man walking over. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor quietly walked to the front of them and stopped over a dozen yards away from them. "A person of the previous generation?" he asked gently. Mute grinned and made a few hand signs. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor frowned as he didn't understand. Tianbo explained to him, "Imperial Preceptor, Grandpa Mute meant he wasn't a person from the previous generation, he was still considered young." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor frowned again. It kept him feel uncomfortable that he couldn't understand the Mute and had to rely on Tianbo to translate it for him. "Dao brother has an extraordinary ability, but what you cultivate isn't sword skill." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed ruefully. "I had interacted with a few people of the previous generation and learned quite a bit. I thought I had seen all kinds of divine arts, paths, and skills, yet never would I expect to see a unique divine art like this. Can Dao brother let me experience your divine art?" Tianbo was astonished. He saw Mute attacking just now with countless sword pellets soaring into the sky and turning into endless flying swords, forcing even Dutian Devil King having no choice but to defend, yet was still injured by his swords. Tianbo had thought Mute's skill was all on swords, yet Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said what Mute cultivated wasn't sword skill. Could Mute's ability be above the sword skill that he had exhibited? In the village, what Mute had taught him was the path of forging. Tianbo still carried around a huge hammer frequently and his hammer skills were taught by Mute. Could Grandpa Mute be cultivating hammer skills? Mute grinned and fastened the furnace on his back. He placed down the wooden chest in his hands. His appearance now was like a traveling blacksmith, taking a break at whichever village he arrived at to help forge ironware for the villagers. His chest was like a chest used to store tools for forging, and the items coming out from the chest shouldn't be sword pellets but something like a hammer, anvil, filter funnel, iron ladle, etc. He opened the chest and gave a few more hand signs. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's expression turned stiff and looked at Tianbo. Tianbo said, "Grandpa Mute says his skill is almost lost to the world. It's fine if Imperial Preceptor wants to take a look. He wants Imperial Preceptor to find a suitable successor for him." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor felt deep veneration and said, "Dao brother is actually willing to impart the consummate skills of your life to others. Your breadth of mind far surpasses those cult masters, sect masters of those reputable and big sects. If fate allows, I'll keep an eye out for Dao brother." The wooden chest was opened and inside it were countless sword pellets. Each sword pellet was the size of a thumb. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gave a puzzled look and Mute smiled. He stretched out his palm and the sword pellets were suddenly not silver pellets anymore. They had instead liquefied and turned into something that was like water yet was like light. It gave people the feeling that it was a water transformed from light. This chest of sword pellets had turned into a chest of liquid light. The liquid light then slowly rose from the chest and crawled on Mute's body, spreading throughout his entire body like a silver armor. Qin Mu and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor immediately saw all kinds of strange markings appearing on the armor's surface. Those were strange rune formations that were mainly in charge of the defense. The liquid light then flowed down from Mute's body and turned into a huge bell in mid-air. It was dozens of yards tall and the wall of the bell was very thin as if it could be see-through. The huge bell slowly spun and incomparably ancient characters appeared on the wall of the bell. There were also pictures of all kinds of strange beasts as well as the arrangement of the stars in the full scope of the heavens. Swoosh! The huge bell transformed into flowing light and a silver dragon appeared and circled around them. As the dragon moved, dragon markings covered its entire body. Suddenly the silver dragon rose into mid-air and turned into a long sword which soared into the sky, executing profound sword moves. The sword light suddenly retracted and a huge shield came descending down from the sky. Before the huge shield landed on the ground, it turned into a silver umbrella and slowly floated down while spinning. The sword pellets in Mute's chest actually had countless changes. It could turn into any weapons and any treasures of any use. The treasure in this chest of his could even transform into the form of divine arts. It was also Qin Mu's first time to see Mute executing his true abilities, and it was also his first time to see such a miraculous ability. Mute didn't teach this ability to him and he had never seen Mute executing this kind of ability in the village as well. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was spellbound. Suddenly, the liquid light flowed over and transformed into a silver boat and Mute threw his chest onto the silver boat before jumping up onto it. He grinned at Qin Mu and waved his hand as the silver boat broke through the air at an extreme speed and vanished without a trace. Qin Mu opened his mouth and wanted to call him back, but after thinking, he didn't say a word. After a moment, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor let out a stale breath and exclaimed, "Superb ability, superb ability. There's still an ability I haven't ever seen before in this world. This Dao brother is remarkable. Imperial Academician, you know him." Qin Mu said, "He's my elder." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was stunned and didn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Could it be the experts of Heavenly Devil sect? Other than Grand Chancellor, there's actually such an expert in Heavenly Devil cult, simply remarkable, as expected of the #1 sacred ground of the Devil Path. Qin Mu shook his head. Imperial Preceptor guessed wrongly. I was born in great ruins, thus my home is in great ruins. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was astonished and looked at him deeply before saying meaningfully, Imperial Academician actually came from a powerful family with profound studies. Qin Mu was stunned for a moment and nodded his head reluctantly. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor then asked indifferently, in that case, who was the one that had summoned this devil god? I have no idea as well. Qin Mu said with a straight face, I've also just reached this place and came across such a huge chaos. I'm also so wronged, nearly died here. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded his head gently and said, Gu Linwan asked you to lead a team of scholars out here for experience. From what I know, your destination should be Lizhu. This is Heaven Wave City and Martial Order County is on the opposite shore, which is 70 miles away from Lizhu. Why is Imperial Academician here? About this? Qin Mu pulled out Hulinga from his backpack and looked at this little white fox. Hulinga raised her paws and nibbles on her claws. Her eyeballs rolled rapidly and her eyes suddenly lighted up. We had floated down from surging river. We encountered danger in Lizhu as the remnants of great mountain sect summoned a devil god, therefore we had escaped out from the river. Young master, is this explanation okay? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said without a change in expression, you can say whatever you like. In this chaos of Heaven Wave City, there are countless deaths of the rebel army stationed in Heaven Wave City. The person who summoned the devil god had done a great merit. I prepare to recommend him to the Emperor and raise his official position. With this level of merit, the person could be raised to upper 4th ranking at the minimum. Qin Mu opened his mouth and Hulinga immediately said, it's our young master who did it. Our young master had summoned this devil god called Juqian or something. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor ignored her and continued, there's merit, but since there were also countless of deaths of the commoners in the city, this sin is also huge. Even though death is unavoidable in the battlefield, there are too much deaths in wiping out a city. If I want to show off this person's accomplishment, there will definitely be contrarians in the Imperial court criticizing that this person killed countless people, forcing the Emperor to punish him. When the rebellion is quelled, scores will definitely be settled at an opportune moment and this person might be purged. I can't say if his whole family would be executed, but being stripped of the official position and exiled is definite. Hu Linga immediately shut her mouth and felt everything she said was wrong. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gave a smile and said, "Therefore I prepare to keep this merit under wraps and not say who did it. Without merit, there's also no demerit. How does Imperial Academician think it that I handle it like this?" Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and said, "Imperial Preceptor has handled it very well." Behind them, the army of Eternal Peace Empire had slaughtered all the Heavenly Devil Horde and a few generals came walking over. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned around and said indifferently, "Contrarians kill people by their mouths and not their hands. Even if you're able to escape for your life under the mouths of contrarians, it's still going to be a load of annoyance." Qin Mu said, "Imperial Preceptor has experienced it for yourself." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded his head. "For my reform, I already killed countless contrarians, but there would be another wave of them coming out every time you kill a wave of them. They are endless to kill. They have no ability and don't do anything, yet they take huff at everything you do or say. The only thing they're good at is scolding you. Do you know what my end will be if my reform fails?" Qin Mu shook his head. "I will definitely be condemned by posterity for the next 10,000 years. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said indifferent, "Even if I succeed in my reform, I would also be scolded by the contrarians for the next hundreds and thousands of years. I once had a Dao friend who could console my heart. His expression turned dim, but he has left. I miss him very much." Qin Mu was stunned and didn't know who this Dao friend was. However, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor disclosing his worry to him made his hair stood on end. He felt he could be gotten rid of any time, silencing him. "You don't have to worry." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor seemed to be able to see what he was thinking and said leisurely, "I only felt some emotions in my heart and shared them with you. You're a good listener. If it was Duke Wei, that blabbermouth, I wouldn't dare to say much, otherwise the entire Imperial court will know about it the next day." "Duke Wei?" "Wei Yong seems to be from Duke Wei's family." Qin Mu blinked his eyes innocently. Duke Wei, a first-ranking high official, was also a blabbermouth. Wei Yong's talkativeness was already much of a headache, so he had actually learned it from his family. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Furthermore, even though you're a 6th-ranking Imperial Academician and have an official position, you are not part of the Imperial Court. It's very safe talking with you." He gave a smile and said, "The most crucial point is that no one would believe what the Devil Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult says." Qin Mu's face darkened. Even though Heaven Devil Cult had a good reputation with the commoners, in the eyes of the Imperial Court and martial world, they had a bad reputation. Those few generals came closer to them and one of them bowed. "Imperial Preceptor, Heaven Wave City has already been quelled." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded his head and the few generals looked at Qin Mu, giving off puzzled expressions. Qin Mu smiled and nodded to them. "This is the first Imperial Academician of our dynasty." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Imperial Academician Qin Mu." These few generals saw Qin Mu appearing honest and magnificent. Even though he was young, he gave people a feeling of reliability. They couldn't help exclaiming, "Academician Qin is truly young yet matured, as expected of the first Imperial Academician, a person that's erudite." Qin Mu greeted and smiled, "You have flattered me." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned around and looked towards the south. "This battle is only giving them an inkling of what we're capable of. The battle afterward is then the crucial one, Keek." The few generals felt astonishment in their hearts and they immediately rushed forward. "Imperial Preceptor, your injury." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved his hands and his face was slightly pale. He then recovered and said, "I might have suffered the recoil when killing that devil god just now. It's nothing serious. The rebel army is stationed in the south and I prepare to give them 2 choices. Pillar of State he." A general with a square face bowed, "Yes, Imperial Preceptor. Go to the south and tell the rebels there that I'm coming. I'm giving them 2 choices." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor pointed to the southern borders with a cold expression. "The first choice, I will lead thousands of soldiers and cavalries over and trample all over them, eradicating their cults, eradicating their sects, eradicating their whole families. This is the rules of the Imperial Court. This is what will happen to the rebels. Pillar of State General He Xiaoping listened carefully and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor continued. The second choice is to follow the rules of the martial world. I'll bring the officials of the Imperial Court over to mark out an area and they would all go there to challenge us accordingly to the rules of the martial world. If they have the ability, they can kill us or we will kill them. Two choices for them to choose. Pillar of State he hesitated and said, Imperial Preceptor, I'm afraid it's a little appropriate to go according to the rules of the martial world, right? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, before I entered the Imperial Court as an official, I was also someone from the martial world, so why is it inappropriate? Isn't it the same for Pillar of State General? You have also entered the Imperial Court from the martial world, am I right? Pillar of State he affirmed and said, I'll head to the southern border right now. However, now that Imperial Preceptor is recuperating, if they choose to go by the rules of the martial world, I'm afraid Imperial Preceptor will get stabbed in the back. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor waved his hand and Pillar of State he left. Pillar of State way. Yes, Imperial Preceptor. Dispatch the soldiers and cavalries to cross the river, spreading into the shape of a fan. The east side will move all the way to the East Sea, the west side will move all the way to Great Ruins. Pushing forward horizontally. We'll suppress lakes as we cross lakes, suppress rivers as we cross rivers, eradicate cities when we cross cities, push forward to the south. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said expressionlessly, we need to let these rebels feel the pressure. Wei Wenju receives Imperial Preceptor's command. Duke Wei. Yes, Imperial Preceptor. Duke is powerful in cultivation and proficient in leading troops. You'll lead the troops straight towards Daxiang of the southern borders. Grand General of crowning the army, Grand General of cherishing transformation, each of you will lead an army and head off from both sides of the Duke to eradicate the left and right city of Daxiang. Pillar of State Shong, you will lead an army and slaughter towards Dayu.